वेरी गुड इवनिंग टू ऑल माय डियर स्टूडेंट्स। कैसे हो? कैसी चल रही है आपकी पढ़ाई? अच्छी चल रही होगी। अब तो काफ़ी टाइम मिल गया था ना पढ़ने के लिए। चलो हमारा नेक्स्ट बूस्टर वीडियो देख लेते हैं विच इज़ ऑन यूनिट 4, that is performance of contract. But before I take up a particular question, these are the important topics from unit 4, that is performance of contract. So according to me, the most important topic is joint promise, because मैंने ऑब्जर्व किया है कि एवरी ऑल्टरनेट अटेम्प्ट में तो इस पे क्वेश्चन आता ही आता है. Reciprocal promise is important. Time as a sense of contract, section 55. That's an important topic. नोवेशन, ये जो पर्टिकुलर कॉन्सेप्ट है, इस पे काफ़ी बार क्वेश्चंस आते हैं. सुपरवीनिंग इम्पॉसिबिलिटी, सेक्शन 56. द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट पार्ट फ्रॉम दिस यूनिट आफ्टर जॉइंट प्रॉमिस. Who can perform the contract can be asked as practical question. And appropriation of payment, इस पे recently questions आए थे, इसीलिए suddenly it has become important for exam. तो ये थे important topics. अब इन्हीं में से मैंने 3 क्वेश्चंस हाईलाइट किए हैं जो मुझे लगता है थोड़े डिफरेंट है, थोड़े अलग हैं, उन पे आपको कॉन्सेंट्रेट करना चाहिए. सो लेट्स गेट स्टार्टेड विद आवर 15 minutes booster videos wherein we will quickly discuss 3 questions in just 15 minutes. If you're watching my video for the first time, I am CA Preeti Aggarwal and I make videos specially for you. Do subscribe to your channel Theory Masters Learning and hit the bell icon so that you get notifications for all the booster videos. For CA books and video lectures, do visit my website theorymasterslearning.com. There is a lot of free content. There are beautiful books and recorded lectures created specially for you. The first question that I have chosen today is from the module. So if you don't have the module with you while watching the video, please quickly go and get the module, because I have chosen 2 questions from the module, 1 question from my compiler. Now, what is a compiler? It is a compilation of all past exam questions, study material questions, RTP, MTP questions, all compiled at one place and arranged unit wise. I will leave the link in the description box. You can place your order today itself by visiting my website theorymasterslearning.com. Go get the study material and let's discuss the first question that I have chosen. According to me, one of the important concepts from unit 4 is joint promise. Many case-based question, or you can say practical questions, have been asked on this concept. So the first question is based on joint promise. X, Y and Z, they have jointly borrowed rupees 50,000 from A. The whole amount was repaid by A by Y. So X, Y, Z, they are joint promisors. They have jointly borrowed 50,000 rupees from A. The whole amount was repaid to A by Y. Okay, that's important. Decide in the light of the Contract Act whether Y can recover the amount of contribution from X and Z. Legal representatives of X, whether they are liable in case of death of X, and whether Y can recover the contribution in case Z becomes insolvent. This is the question. It is based on the entire concept of joint promise. That is why I selected this question, because the entire concept will be revised through this question. Now students, I have a small handwritten note for you so that we can recollect and revise the concept before answering the questions. So let's read that note also. So this is a note which I have prepared on joint promise. Section 42, 43 and section 44, they relate to joint promise. Now, when 2 or more persons, they make a promise to 1 or more persons, then it is known as a joint promise. Section 42, 43, 44, they cover the provisions relating to joint promise, and all these 3 sections are important for exam. You have to remember the section number. Students, if you want a list of section numbers, then the same is available on my website theorymasterslearning.com. I will leave a link in the description box. You can download the sections for Contract Act, Sale of Goods, Partnership, LLP and Companies Act. I have also highlighted in purple the important section numbers. If you remember only those section numbers, it is sufficient for exam. So do go and download that from my website. Now, section 42 talks about devolution of joint liability. What does it say? It says that in case X, Y, Z, they have jointly promised to pay money to A, then all three are jointly liable. So when all are alive, they are all liable. But what if X dies? Then in that case, the liability will devolve upon, okay, it will fall upon the legal representative. So the legal representative along with Y and Z will perform the promise. What if Y dies? Then legal representative of Y along with legal representative of X and Mr. Z, they will perform the promise. If all die, then the legal representative of all will perform the promise. This is given in section 42. The entire story is explained under section 42. What is section 43? In case the promisee wants to recover the money, he can do so by recovering it from any joint promiser. So any one of the joint promiser may be compelled to pay the entire amount. Why is that so? How can you recover the money only from one joint promiser? Because their liability is joint and several. So all are liable jointly, but I am liable not only for my share but also for the share of other promisers. So I may be compelled to pay the entire amount because the liability is, these are the keywords, joint and several. Section 43 also talks about each promiser may compel contribution. Now let's say for example X, Y, Z, they have jointly promised to pay 30,000 rupees to A. A can compel X to pay the entire amount. Now X has paid the entire amount. Law says don't worry X. You can recover Y and Z's share from them later on. So that is explained in section 43. Now we went to recover the money from Y, but we realize that he has become insolvent and his assets are sufficient to pay, let's say, only half of his debts. Then the remaining solvent promisers will bear the loss arising due to this default, and that loss will be borne equally. Section 44 talks about release of one of the joint promisers. Now, release of one joint promiser will not release the other joint promisers. They will be liable. Later on, they can recover the money from the promisers so released. So yes, you were able to recall the concept of joint promise. Now, let us apply that to the question. So, X, Y, Z, they have jointly borrowed rupees 50,000 from A. The whole amount was paid to A by Y. Can we compel any one joint promiser to pay the entire amount? Yes, he can do so. Section 43. We can compel any one joint promiser because their liability is joint and several. So what if Y has paid? Yes, can he recover contribution from X and Z? Yes, that is also explained in section 43. So you will write that any one joint promiser may be compelled to pay the entire amount and then later on he can recover the contribution from X and Z. So that is section 43. Will the legal representative of X be liable in case of death of X? We discussed this in section 42. In case X dies, then his legal representative will be liable for X's share. But over here, students, it is important for you to know that the liability of legal representative will be limited to the amount or the value of estate that he has inherited from the deceased. So whatever is the value of estate that legal representative has received, his liability will be restricted only to that amount. Whether Y can recover the contribution from the assets in case Z becomes insolvent? Yes, if Z has become insolvent, then his assets shall be liable. But what if there is default? What if his assets are insufficient? Then the loss will be shared by X and Y. So the loss in case of default will be shared by the remaining promisers. They will have to share it because the liability is joint and several, so they will be liable. So this entire question actually discusses only the theory part of section 42, 43 and 44. Mostly over here you have to concentrate on writing the theory perfectly. Most of the marks will be allocated to writing the theory. Okay, so that was the first question. The second question, students, which I have chosen is also from the module. This is an exam question. This is a November 2019 exam question, but I really like the way in which they have framed the entire question and the application of that. So second question is also from the module today. Mr. Rich aspired to get a self-portrait made by an artist. He went to the workshop of Mr. C, an artist, and asked whether he could sketch the former's portrait on oil painting canvas. Okay. Mr. C agreed to the offer and asked for 50,000 as full advance payment of the above creative work. Now, wait. Before you proceed, students, always identify the parties in the contract. So Mr. Rich, he wants his portrait to be made by an artist. So can I say that he's the customer? Okay. And he wants it to be made by Mr. C, who is an artist. Okay, so C is an artist. Now I have highlighted the parties. I will continue reading. C agreed to the offer and asked for 50,000 as advance. Okay, so Mr. Rich in this case has paid 50,000 rupees as advance to C, an artist. C clarified that the painting will be completed in 10 sittings. It will take 3 months. On reaching the workshop for the 6th sitting, Mr. Rich was informed that C has become paralyzed and will not be able to paint in the near future. C has a son, Mr. K, who is pursuing his studies and he has not yet taken up the father's profession. Okay, doesn't matter. Anyways, we were paying for the skill of C. Now, can Mr. Rich ask Mr. K to complete the artistic work in lieu of his father? Could Mr. Rich ask K for refund of money? Okay, now students, you must have studied this concept. What is happening in this case? C has promised to make a painting for Mr. Rich. So can I say that C is the promiser? He has promised to make. Now the promiser died. What happens in case of death of the promiser? Students, do you remember? What happens in case of death? See, I have a note again for you. These are your last minute revision notes. Okay. And if you have written these notes, it'll be very easy for you to remember the concept. Okay. And apply it also. As per section 37 of the Indian Contract Act 1872, whenever you write the section number, you should mention the name of the act also to which that section belongs. In case the promiser dies, what happens, students, under normal circumstances? Absolutely right. You are so quick in answering. I'm so proud of you. In case the promiser dies, his legal representative will perform the promise. But what if it involves personal skill, personal consideration? Then what will happen? Then the contract comes to an end because it cannot be performed by any other person. I have written one extra note for you that the liability of the legal representative is limited to the value of the property inherited from the deceased. This is just an extra point. We are not going to use that in the question, but if we are making a note for last minute revision, it has to be complete. You can pause the video, you can copy this in your notebook, or you can copy this besides the question from the study material from the module. Okay, now over here, Mr. C is an artist and he died. Can the contract be performed by his son, by his legal representative, by his legal heir? No, it comes to an end. Okay, now the contract has come to an end, cannot be performed, it becomes void. What will happen to the advance of rupees 50,000? That will have to be restored because the contract has subsequently become void without the fault of either parties. Section 65 applies here. Many students have doubt in section 64 and 65. So don't worry, students, I am going to prepare a separate video with examples on section 64 and 65. Subscribe to my YouTube channel now, hit the bell icon so that you get notification for that particular video. Okay, so did you understand this concept? Now let us quickly apply this in the question. But what is there to apply? Now we have already discussed the theory and we know the answers. Mr. C, can Rich ask K to complete? No, it cannot be performed by any other person. Could Mr. Rich ask K for refund of money? Yes, section 65 applies over here. So students, what are you expected to write? First, you will write the theory. which comprises of section 37, which I have written. See, you will write all this in sentence form, and then you will simply answer these questions. That in this case, it cannot be performed by any other person. So Mr. K cannot be asked to complete the work. And Mr. Rich, yes, he can claim a refund. Section 65, I will be covering this in a separate video. The third question, students, which I have identified for the day is, now you may be wanting these questions, but this is already in the study material. The third question which I have identified for today is from my compiler. Okay, yes, this is the third question. This is a very, very, very unique question, students. This has not been asked in the exam anytime. This is just an extra question which we have in the compiler. A owes B 1,000 rupees. Okay, A owes B rupees 1,000 under a contract, and B owes C 1,000 rupees. Okay, so always write it in the arrow format. A owes B and B owes C. Now B has ordered A to credit C. It simply means that B has asked A to pay the money directly to C. It makes sense, no? Now B will first receive the money from A and then pass on to C. So it is better that he gives it. Okay, so A will pay money directly to C. That is a request. But C does not assent to this arrangement. This is your, these are your keywords. This is your hint. The entire answer is based on this. Answer is always hidden in the question itself. You just need to learn how to identify it. So C does not assent. Does B still owe C 1,000 rupees? Now what is happening in this case? You are asking someone else to pay. Now B has the right to recover money from A. Yes, he can transfer this right to someone else. Assignment is possible. Also, instead of B paying the money to C, you are asking C to accept money from A. You are asking C to enter into a new contract in place of the original contract. This is nothing but, tell me, it is novation. But students, for novation, mutual consent of parties is required. You cannot enforce, you cannot make novation compulsory. Novation is possible only with the mutual consent of all the parties. The logic behind is that by mutual consent, you can enter into contracts. So by mutual consent, you can also put the contract to an end. But it is very important that novation should happen with the mutual consent of all the parties. It cannot be compulsorily enforced. It is possible only with the mutual consent. So here C has not consented. So can B compel C to accept the money from A? Is novation possible? No. Hence B still owes the money to C. So these are the three questions which I identified from Unit 4, that is performance of contract, which also covers discharge of contract. Supervening impossibility is important for exam, but I think you must have covered that so many times in the past. For revision and marathon lectures, please follow the playlist which is already available on my YouTube channel. The name is Prayas Revision Lectures. The lectures are available in Hindi as well as English with free workbook which can be downloaded. Students, I will quickly take your leave, and in the next video I will come up with unique questions from Unit 5, that is breach of contract. But before leaving, do subscribe to your channel Theory Masters Learning and hit the bell icon if you have not done so. Also, for CA books and exciting interesting video lectures, do visit my website theorymasterslearning.com.